Hi, this is Terry from Fabric Junction in Sturgis, South Dakota. And today I'd like to show you how to make a fruity basket pot holder. You ever notice that there's some great basket blocks that are out there? I personally like to use them more for pot holders, placemats, table runners, and that kind of thing, but I have seen some beautiful quilts that were made with baskets. So this is one of the baskets I found that I thought would make a great pot holder. Now the pot holder is quite large. It is 10.5. Normally I prefer more like a 9, but this is 10.5 is the way it kind of worked out best. Otherwise the design was like an 8. And that one for me is just a smidgen small. Plus I actually want to use this one to maybe occasionally put a pot on it. So as your instructions or your cutting at the very beginning that we show, everything was cut in squares and then into triangles. So we did a lot of half square triangles on this one. If you don't want to cut your triangle ahead of time, you can use the method of marking it, sewing left and right, and splitting it. That's okay. One of the things though is when you do cut for your center one, you will only use one set. So you can actually save that for your for a matching pot holder if you like. So the method I'm going to show you on sewing your half square triangle today is actually just taking your two triangles and sewing them together. That is the same method I used on my small ones. And the reason I did that on my small ones is because I don't know if it's showing up on camera very well, but my green has a stripe in it. And because of that stripe, I wanted to make sure all my parts were going the same direction, whether they were up in the handle or the base. And the way to do that was to go ahead and cut them all from the same angle and not mistakenly sew them from the wrong angle. So the half square triangles that I used in this one were two pieces, just like this. I put my two sections together, match them up, and do my 1/4 inch seam. There we go. And I try to watch real careful so that little tip doesn't go down. I don't know how many times, it always likes to go down. So I start off really slow and careful. So now with that, I now have all my half square triangles made. So I need to press. Trim my dog ears. And then I set it back in my block where I'd like it. So now you take your small, your handled, 3 on one side, 5 with your square, I think it's a 2.5 inch square on the other side for placement. So that's the next step, is to add to your center piece. If you happen to press these in opposite directions, they just butt up to each other really, really nice. Get my two pieces lined up, lay it down. Okay. Try the best way to go over, because there is a bit of bulk there, and it can slow you down when you go over it. Okay. So we're going to press again, and this time I want it to go to the other side because that's the less bulky side. And now we're going to add, and I know this is already pressed to the square because that's the less bulky. So those two parts will butt up to each other, and that's the section I need to match. So I get them pushed up, I can pin, And now I'm going to line up my corner and stitch the side. Hold my pin. Actually kind of hold my other corner together. Lay down nice. Feel it moving just a little bit because your underside feeds at a little bit different rate than the top side. Open those up. There it is. Whoops. Just wants to kind of slide just a little bit. There we go. And again, I'm going to press. And I do know I have a little crinkle in there. Okay, I tend to do that. Some people like to press their seams open because I like this bulk going to the less. This bulk opens. So I just kind of press that little twist. I don't know how kosher that is. And maybe someone, if they looked inside my quilts, probably would have a stroke because I do it that way. But for me, I think it gets it to lay down, and it's a little easier for me to sew. So we have the top part of our basket ready. We have our handle on, and now we need to do our base. In the pattern, you would have had a couple extra squares, and you just sew the square, line it up on the edge. The long base of your triangle will be on the outside. You're going to sew on one of your sides. Create one that's a left and a right, and then these are added to the sides. And if I remember right, there's nothing to really match up other than your start and stop corners. Now, my triangle is trimmed just a little bit. Normally you would have a point on that. If you have a point on it, mine I just happened to snip off a 1/4 inch to get it to line up. So you can trim off, measure from the corner, go in, and you can just trim off that little 1/4 inch. That gives you this little blunt end. Or you can leave it and make sure that you're going to sew off basically that 1/4 inch in. It's one of those things, I don't do it all the time, but it just happened to work on this particular one to just kind of nip off that little tip on this particular layout. And I know there's a variety of templates out there that already have those tips off. Now I should have pressed. Okay, there's where I want to be. And I will, after this side gets sewn on, there we go. Because normally if I'm going to cross my seam, I try to press it, but this time I am anxious to get my pot holder done. Okay, so press this side, it goes that way. I'm going to press the other side. We have our base on. So the last step is adding the last triangle. And what I do here, you've got a little intersection, and on mine it's right there. Whoops, see if I can't get my pin to go into it. So that's my center. What I want to do is I want to place this in the center. So I do just a little mark, just enough that I know that's center, and I can line it up. Now the second thing I'm going to do is, because I have an intersection on the other side, I'm actually going to sew this so I can see that intersection. So normally my nature is I sew the little piece on the top, but in this case I want to be able to see that intersection, so I flip it down and sew it from, and this wants to go this way because I want to cross that intersection. There it is. And when I cross that intersection, that's what keeps those points. Now on this particular one, you wouldn't really notice those points because I'm using the same color. My base is the same, this is the same. But if you get in the habit of it, when it's different colors, you won't be sewing off your little points that you like, whether they're on the sides or where they are. I now have my pot holder block finished. What I did is I cut an oversized piece of the back. When I started the project, I used a fat quarter of my fruit that I wanted to work with. Out of that fat quarter, I cut my big piece for the back. I cut my smaller square so I could fill my basket, and I used the rest of it for my binding. So what I want to show you is I used oversized, it's like 12 or 12 and a half inches. On this one, because there's a chance that I might put a pot on it, I got a piece of 100% cotton and then a piece of the Insulbright. So I'm going to layer all of those. I put this on the top, get it nice, laid out really, really nice. I pin where I wanted to keep everything in place through all the layers, keep it really nice. Now when I went to quilt this, I put my walking foot on my machine, and I'll show you from one of the finished ones how I quilted it. I actually did kind of a shadow. So instead of in the ditch, which you can stitch in the ditch, I actually went not quite a full quarter, just around on the background, and then I came back in and did the inside of my basket, my fruit, and then I went around this as a whole basket. I didn't want to stitch here and take away from the actual basket. The back side's a little harder to see the stitching on there because of the print. So what I want you to do, you can stitch it that way, you can stitch it in the ditch, you can do free motion, whatever technique you would like to do on your placemat. When you're done, trim and add your binding. And then your binding needs to be 50 some inches. And I'm going to have you refer to our video on binding a pot holder because it shows you the technique how to handle this and create your little loop on attaching your binding for that. So with that, that's how I made my baskets of fruit that I think are going to be Christmas gifts because they were so much fun, and I still have other fruits that I can use to make these. So in the end, hope you enjoyed watching our video on making a fruit, or maybe you'd like to make a quilt with it. Check us out on Facebook, our blog, our website, all kinds of fun stuff that we have going on here, and I hope you enjoyed watching us here at Fabric Junction, and check out our other videos and other techniques that we have posted on the YouTube. Thank you again for watching.